program. So these all is about the classes and objects. Let us come to the new concept, that is constructor. Constructor is used for initializing the values of to the data members of a class. A constructor is distinct from other member function because its name is same as the name of class. So syntax of a constructor is class name, declaration part public, then class name, parameter list, then the executable part, semicolon. So constructor is basically used to initialize the value of a class. Constructor is invoked whenever a object is created. Whenever an object is created, automatically constructor is invoked. Whatever the values are provided there, these values are assigned to the data members, and by default initialization of the object is performed. So always whenever we are going to define the constructor, constructor is same as the class name. Constructor is a function, but it has the function name same as the class name. So let us we can define the constructor outside the class with the help of the scope resolution operator. Let us take an example. As we already have done the example of calculator, let us take that example, class calculator. We have defined two integer variables x and y, calculator again. Now this calculator is a constructor with the curve braces indicate that it is a function, but it is a constructor because it has the same name as the class name. So here we can assign the value of x is equal to 10, 10 value is assigned to x variable and 20 values assigned to y variable. So next void sum, all the functions are defined. Void main, calculator C1. Whenever C1 is created, the values 10 and 20 is assigned to the x and y. We have not to call the constructor with the help of object. Constructor is called by default whenever the object is created. So invoking of constructor function, a constructor is automatically invoked when an object is created in a class. Constructor is called before main function start for execution. It is also invoked when an object is created in global, local or static variables. So there are different types of constructors. These are grouped into three types. Number one is default constructor, parameterized constructors and copy constructors. Let us say default constructor. A constructor that accepts no parameter is called default constructors. So default constructor is also called as empty constructor, which has no arguments. It is automatically called when we create the objects of class, but remember, name of constructor is same as the name of class. Constructor never declared with the help of return type. A constructor can never have any return type because it never return any value to the function. So let us look at the example of the default constructor, that is class student. Again private, a student have a name, age, roll number, sex, marks, public section, student. Now here student is a constructor because it has the same name as the class name, but in this case as a constructor is a function, we have not defined any parameter value, so it is a default constructor that is invoked when the object is created. So let us come to the next example, that is parameterized constructor. The constructors that take arguments are called parameters constructors. The argument list are specified in braces. In this type, two types of calling can take place. Number one is implicit call and number two is explicit call. Let us look at the example of the parameterized constructor. Let us say we have created a new class, that is class bank. In this case, in the private section we have declared two variables x and y. In the public section we have defined the constructor, that is bank. Because bank is a class name, here we define again a bank, then int a comma int b. these two are parameters which are going to be provided when the object is created. Then executable functions or data, and then curly braces close, semicolon, end of a class. Then whenever this function is invoked, whenever an object is invoked, the values are passed and these values are assigned to the variables x and y. As we have defined that constructor outside a class, the a value is assigned to x variable and b value is assigned to y variable. So whatever the values are passed, these are copied into a and b, and again the value which is copied into a are assigned to x variable and the value which is copied into b is assigned to y variable. So let us come to the last constructor, types of constructor, that is copy constructor. A copy constructor takes a reference to its own class as parameters. That is, a constructor having a reference to instance of its own class as an argument is known as copy constructor. It do not return a function value, as constructor cannot return any values. So copy constructors are used in following situations. The copy constructors can be used in following situations. Number one is the initialization of object by another object of the same class. When we want to initialize the object, initialization of object, or when we want to assign the same values by the other object of the same class. Return of objects as function values, stating the object as by value parameters of the function. So there are three situations in which copy constructor is used. So there are some special characteristics of the constructors. Let us look at that. Number one is a constructor name must be same as the name of the class. The second one is constructor should be declared in the public section so that it can be accessed easily. They are invoked automatically when the objects are created. Whenever we declare an object, we create an object, the constructors are automatically called. So a constructor may not be static. They do not have return type, not even void, and therefore cannot return values. So basically constructor is a function, but it is only used to initialize the values of a class. It cannot perform any operations on that values, so it cannot return any value. They are used to initialize the data members of the class. A constructor may not be virtual. They cannot be declared constant or volatile, but a constructor can be invoked for constant or volatile objects. An object with a constructor cannot be used as a member of a union. They cannot be inherited through a derived class can call the base class constructor. This is the concept of the inheritance which you are going to learn later on. They cannot be inherited. A constructor can have default arguments. So when we come to the constructor is basically for the allocation of the memory. Whenever object is created, the memory is allocated or values are assigned to the variables. In different way, a destructor is used to destroy the objects that have been created by the constructor. Whenever the program execution is completed, the last execution is destructor is executed by the last, and whenever the destructor is executed, the memory space allocated to the variables is get free. A destructor is called for a class object when that object passes out of scope or it is explicitly deleted. So here main characteristics of the destructors are: a destructor is having same name as the name of a class except that it is preceded by the tilde sign. They cannot be declared static, constant or volatile. They should have public access in a class declaration. That means again destructors should be declared in the public section. It have no return type and neither it takes any argument. So conclusion, today we have learned about classes. Class is a combination or group of data member and functions that operates on that data. Within that we have defined it 3 sections of a classes, that is private, public and protected. The data members or functions declared in private and protected sections cannot be accessed outside the class, but the data members or functions declared in the public sections can be accessed by the outside function or a class. So objects are entities, objects are instance of a class, objects are variables of a class, and every object have its own state, behavior and identity. So next, how we declare them? For declaration of classes we use the keyword class, then followed by class name, then curly braces start. Whatever the function data members we want to declare within a class we declare, and the ends with the curly braces and semicolon. Whenever semicolon comes with the curly braces, it indicates that the class definition is over and it is the end of the class. Various ways to define member function. The member function of a class can be defined within a class or outside a class. So within a class we can define directly, and if we want to define the member function of a class outside a class, we use the scope resolution operator. The syntax, as I already told you, that is return type of a function, then followed by class name. Class name is the same name in which that function is belongs, and then scope resolution operator. Scope resolution operator gives compiler information that the function definition which are going to define is belongs to a particular class. Then function name, parameter list and function body is start. So constructor and its types. So we have learned that constructor is automatically invoked whenever an object is created. So constructor basically used to initialize the data values or assign the values to the data members of a class. And there are 3 different types of constructor. One is default constructor, copy constructor and parameterized constructor. In case of default constructor, we cannot pass any parameters. In case of parameterized constructor, we can pass number of values as we required, and in case of copy constructor, we can assign the one object's values to the another, and the constructor name should be the same name as of its class name. So use of constructor, why we use? To automatically initialize the values to the data members of a class. And the last one we have learned about, that is destructor. So what are destructors? Destructors are used to destroy the memory or to free the memory which is allocated by the constructor, so that the memory space should be available to the next higher function to be performed or next higher program to be executed. So that's all for today. Thank you very much.